Chapter 3. Life in the World. Why do you think you are a householder? The similar thought that you are a sannyasi will haunt you even if you go forth as one. Whether you continue in the household or renounce it and go to live in the forest, your mind haunts you. The ego is the source of thought. It creates the body and the world and makes you think of being a householder. If you renounce, it will only substitute the thought of renunciation for that of the family and the environment of the forest for that of the household. But the mental obstacles are always there for you. They even increase greatly in the new surroundings. Change of environment is of no help. The one obstacle is the mind, and this must be overcome whether in the home or in the forest. If you can do it in the forest, why not in the home? So why change the environment? Your efforts can be made even now, whatever be the environment. Is it possible to enjoy samadhi while busy with worldly work? It is the feeling I work that is the hindrance. Ask yourself, who works? Remember who you are. Then the work will not bind you. It will go on automatically. Make no effort either to work or to renounce. Your effort is the bondage. What is destined to happen will happen. If you are destined to work, you will not be able to avoid it. You will be forced to engage in it. So leave it to the higher power. It is not really your choice whether you renounce or retain. When women carrying jars of water on their heads stop to talk, they are very careful keeping their mind on the water jars. Similarly, when a sage engages in activity, his mind remains fixed in the self and his activity does not distract him. I believe celibacy is necessary even for the householder if he is to succeed in self-inquiry. Am I right? First, find out who the wife and husband are. Then the question will not arise. Isn't brahmacharya celibacy necessary for realization of the self? Brahmacharya means living in Brahman. It has no connection with celibacy as commonly understood. A real brahmachari is one who lives in Brahman and finds bliss in Brahman, which is the same as the self. Why then should he look for other sources of happiness? In fact, it is emergence from the self that is the cause of all misery. But isn't celibacy necessary for yoga? It is one aid to realization among many others. Then is it not indispensable? Can a married man realize the self? Certainly, it is a question of fitness of mind. Married or unmarried, a man can realize the self, because the self is here and now. If it were not, but were obtainable by some effort at some future time, if it were something new to be acquired, it would not be worth seeking, because what is not natural cannot be permanent. What I say is that the self is here and now, and that it alone is. Is it necessary to take sannyasa, a vow of renunciation, in order to attain self-realization? Sannyasa means renouncing one's individuality, not shaving one's head and putting on ochre robes. A man may be a householder, but if he does not think he is one, he is a sannyasin. On the other hand, he may wear ochre robes and wander about, but so long as he thinks he is a sannyasin, he is not one. To think about one's renunciation defeats the purpose of renouncing. What do you mean by taking sannyasa? Do you think it means leaving your home or wearing robes of a certain color? Wherever you go, even if you fly up into the air, will your mind not go with you? Or can you leave it behind you and go without it? Why should your occupation or duties in life interfere with your spiritual effort? For instance, there is a difference between your activities at home and in the office. In your office activities, you are detached, and so long as you do your duty, you do not care what happens or whether it results in gain or loss to the employer. Your duties at home, on the other hand, are performed with attachment, and you are all the time anxious whether they will bring advantage to you and your family. But it is possible to perform all activities of life with detachment and regard only the self as real. It is wrong to suppose that if one is fixed in the self, one's duties in life will not be properly performed. It is like an actor. He dresses and acts and even feels the part he is playing. But he knows really that he is not that character but someone else in real life. In the same way, why should the body consciousness or the feeling, "I am the body," disturb you? Once you know for certain that you are not the body, but the self, nothing that the body does should shake you from abidance in the self. Such abidance will never interfere with the proper and effective discharge of whatever duties the body has any more than an actor's being aware of his real status in life interferes with his acting a part on the stage. It has been definitely stated that so long as there is the least trace of "I am the doer" idea, there can be no realization. But is it possible for a householder who earnestly desires liberation to fulfill his duties without this idea? There is no principle that actions can be performed only on the basis of "I am the doer" idea, and therefore there is no reason to ask whether they can be performed and the duties discharged without that idea. To take a common example, an accountant working all day in his office and scrupulously attending to his duties might seem to the spectator to be shouldering all the financial responsibilities of the institution. But, knowing that he is not personally affected by the intake or outgoings, he remains unattached and free from the "I am the doer" feeling in doing his work, while at the same time he does it perfectly well. In the same way, it is quite possible for the wise householder who earnestly seeks liberation to discharge his duties in life, which, after all, are his destiny, without any attachment, regarding himself merely as an instrument for the purpose. Such activity is not an obstacle on the path of knowledge, nor does knowledge prevent a man from discharging his duties in life. Knowledge and activity are never mutually antagonistic, and the realization of one does not impede the performance of the other, nor performance of the one the realization of the other. What is the significance of the life of a spiritually minded householder who has to devote all his time merely to earning a living and supporting his family? And what mutual benefit do they get? The discharge of his duties by a householder, such as this, who works for the support of his family, quite unmindful of his own physical comforts in life, should be regarded as selfless service, rendered to his family, whose needs it is his destiny to meet. It may, however, be asked what benefit such a householder derives from the family. The answer is that there is no benefit for him from the family as such, since he has made the discharge of his duties to them a means of spiritual training, and since he finally obtains perfect contentment by realizing the supreme bliss of liberation, which is the ultimate goal of every path and the supreme reward. He therefore stands in need of nothing from the members of his family or from his family life. How can a householder who is constantly engaged in the active discharge of his domestic duties, which should naturally impel him to still greater activity, obtain the supreme peace of withdrawal and freedom from the urge to such activity, even while thus busily engaged? It is only to the spectator that the enlightened householder seems to be occupied with his domestic duties. For even though apparently engaged in domestic duties, he is not really engaged in any activity at all. His outer activity does not prevent him from realizing the perfect peace of withdrawal, and he is free from the restless urge to activity even in the midst of his activities. Should I retire from business and take to reading books on Vedanta? If objects have an independent existence, that is, if they exist somewhere apart from you, then it may be possible for you to retire from them. But they do not. They owe their existence to you, to your thought. So where can you retire from them? As for reading books on Vedanta, you can go on reading any number, but they can only tell you to realize the self within you. The self cannot be found in books. You have to find it for yourself, in yourself. Is a vow of silence useful? The inner silence is self-surrender, and that means living without the sense of ego. Is solitude necessary for a sannyasin? Solitude is in the mind of a man. One man may be in the thick of the world and yet maintain perfect serenity of mind. Such a person is always in solitude. Another may live in the forest but still be unable to control his mind. He cannot be said to be in solitude. Solitude is an attitude of the mind. A man attached to the things of life cannot get solitude, wherever he may be, whereas a detached man is always in solitude. The silence of solitude is forced. Restrained speech in society is equivalent to silence. But then a man controls his speech. There must be a speaker before there can be speech. If the mind of the speaker is engaged otherwise, speech is retained. When the mind is turned inwards, it is effective in a different way and is not anxious to speak. The purpose of a vow of silence is to limit the mental activities provoked by speech. But if the mind is controlled, this is unnecessary, and silence becomes natural. How does activity help? Doesn't it simply increase the already heavy load upon us that we have to get rid of? Action performed unselfishly purifies the mind and helps to fix itself in meditation. But suppose one were to meditate constantly without activity. Try and see. Your inherent tendencies will not let you. Meditation only comes step by step with their gradual weakening by the grace of the Guru. I have no pleasure in my family. There remains nothing for me to do there. I have done what has to be done, and now there are grandsons and granddaughters in the house. Should I remain there, or should I leave it and go away? You should stay just where you are now. But where are you now? Are you in the house, or is the house in you? Is there any house apart from you? If you become established in your own place, you will find that all things have merged into you, and such questions will become unnecessary. Then it seems I am to remain at home. You are to remain in your true state. Can I engage in spiritual practice even while remaining in the life of the world? Yes, certainly. One ought to do so. Isn't life in the world a hindrance? Don't all the books advocate renunciation? The world is only in the mind. It does not speak out saying, I am the world. If it did, it would have to be always present even in your sleep. Since it is not present in sleep, it is impermanent. Being impermanent, it has no reality. Having no reality, it is easily subdued by the self. The self alone is permanent. Renunciation is non-identification of the self with the non-self. On the disappearance of ignorance, the non-self ceases to exist. That is true renunciation. Why then did you leave your home in your youth? That was my prarabdha, destiny. One's course of conduct in this life is determined by one's prarabdha. My prarabdha lies this way. Yours lies that way. Should I not also renounce? If that had been your prarabdha, the question would not have arisen. Then I take it that I should remain in the world and engage in spiritual practice. But if I do so, how can I obtain realization in this life? This has already been answered. You are always the self. Earnest efforts never fail. Success is bound to result. Why is the world enveloped in ignorance? Look after yourself and let the world look after itself. What is yourself? If you are the body, there is a physical world also. But if you are the spirit, there is only spirit. What do you think about social reform? Social reform automatically results in social reform. Attend to self-reform, and social reform will take care of itself. Now, I will ask you a question. When a man gets into a train, where does he put his luggage? Either in the compartment or in the luggage van. He doesn't carry it on his head or in his lap while in the train. Only a fool would do so. It is 1,000 times more foolish to bear your own burden once you have undertaken the spiritual quest, whether by the path of knowledge or devotion. But can I relinquish all my responsibilities, all my commitments? You remember the temple tower? There are many statues on it, aren't there? Well, there are 4 big ones at the base, one at each corner. Have you seen them? Yes. Well, I tell you that the huge tower is supported by these 4 statues. How is that possible? What does Bhagavan mean? I mean to say that is no more foolish than saying that you bear all the cares, burdens, and responsibilities of life. The Lord of the universe bears the whole burden. You only imagine that you do. You can hand over all your burdens to Him. Whatever you have to do, you will be made an instrument for doing it at the right time. Do not imagine that you cannot do it unless you have the desire to do it. It is not desire that gives you the necessary strength. The strength is the Lord's. Will Bhagavan give his opinion on the future of the world, as we are living in critical times? Why should you worry about the future? You don't even know the present properly. Take care of the present, and the future will take care of itself. Will the world soon enter a new era of friendliness and mutual help, or will it go down in chaos and war? There is one who governs the world, and it is his task to look after it. He who has given life to the world knows how to look after it also. He bears the burden of this world, not you. Yet if one looks round with unprejudiced eyes, it's hard to see where this benevolent care comes in. Be as you are, so is the world. Without understanding yourself, what is the use of trying to understand the world? This is the question that seekers after truth need not worry about. People waste their energy over all such questions. First, find out the truth behind yourself. Then you will be in a better position to understand the truth behind the world of which you are a part. Should I try to help the suffering world? The power that created you created the world as well. If God created the world, it is His business to look after it, not yours. But we see pain in the world. A man is hungry. It is a physical reality. It is very real to him. Are we to call it a dream and remain unmoved by his suffering? From the point of view of jnana, or reality, the suffering you speak of is certainly a dream, as is the world of which suffering is an infinitesimal part. In a dream you have when you are asleep, you yourself feel hunger, and see others also suffering from hunger. You feed yourself, and moved by pity, feed the others who are hungry. So long as the dream lasted, all this suffering was quite real, as the suffering you see in the world is to you now. It was only when you woke up that you discovered it to be unreal. You might have eaten heartily before going to sleep, but you still dreamt that you had been working hard in the hot sun all day and were tired and hungry. Then you woke up and found that your stomach was full and that you had not stirred from your bed. But all this is not to say that while you are in the dream, you can act as if the suffering you feel in it is not real. The hunger in the dream has to be appeased by dream food. The fellow beings you find hungry in the dream have to be provided with dream food. You can never mix the two states, the dream and the waking state. Similarly, till you attain the state of realization and thus wake out of this illusory, phenomenal world, you must do social service by relieving suffering whenever you see it. But even so, you must do it without ahankara, that is, without the sense of, it is I who am doing it. Instead, you should feel, I am the Lord's instrument. Similarly, you must not be conceited and think, I am helping a man who is below me. He needs help and I am in a position to give it. I am superior and he is inferior. You must help him as a means of worshiping God in him. All such service is serving the self, not anybody else. You are not helping anybody else, but only yourself. Is it not our duty to be patriots? It is your duty to be, and not to be this or that. I am that I am sums up the whole of the truth. The method is summarized in be still. Is the desire for Swaraj, independence, right? Such desire no doubt begins with self-interest, yet practical work for the goal gradually widens the outlook so that the individual becomes merged in the country. Such merging of the individuality is desirable, and the karma in question is nikskama, unselfish. If self-government for India is granted after a long struggle and terrible sacrifice, is one not justified in being pleased with the result and elated by it? In the course of one's work, one must have surrendered oneself to the higher power whose might must be kept in mind and never lost sight of. How can then one be elated? One should not even care for the result of one's action. Then alone, the karma becomes unselfish. Gandhi has surrendered himself to the divine and works accordingly with no self-interest. He does not concern himself with the results but accepts them as they turn up. That must be the attitude of national workers. Will the work be crowned with success? This question arises because the questioner has not surrendered himself. Should we then not think of and work for the welfare of the country? First, take care of yourself, and the rest will naturally follow. I'm not speaking individually, but for the country. First, surrender, and then see. Doubts arise because of the absence of surrender. Acquire strength by surrender, and then your surrounding will be found to have improved to the degree of strength acquired by you. Why doesn't Sri Bhagavan go about preaching the truth to the people at large? How do you know that I don't? Does preaching consist in mounting a platform and haranguing the people around? Preaching is simply communication of knowledge and can be done in silence, too. What do you think of a man listening to a harangue for an hour and going away without being impressed by it so as to change his life? Compare him with another who sits in a holy presence and leaves after some time with his outlook on life totally changed. Which is better, to preach loudly, without effect, or to sit silently, sending forth intuitive force to act on others? Again, how does speech arise? First, there is abstract knowledge, unmanifest. From this there arises the ego, which gives rise to thoughts and words successively. So then, abstract knowledge. Ego, thoughts, words. Words, therefore, are the great-grandsons of the original source. If words can produce an effect, consider how much more powerful preaching through silence must be. Does my realization help others? Yes, certainly. It is the best possible help. But really, there are no others to help. For a realized being sees only the self, just as a goldsmith, estimating the gold in various jewels, sees only the gold. Separate forms and beings exist only as long as you identify yourself with the body. When you transcend the body, others disappear along with your body consciousness. Is it so with plants and trees also? Do they exist at all apart from the self? Find out. You think that you see them. The thought is projected from yourself. Find out wherefrom it arises. Then thoughts will cease to rise, and the self alone will remain. I understand theoretically, but they are still there. Yes, it is like a cinema show. There is the light on the screen, and the shadows flitting across impress the audience as the acting of some story. Now suppose that in this film story an audience is also shown on the screen. The seer and the seen will then both be on the screen. Apply this to yourself. You are the screen. The self has created the ego. The ego has its accretions of thoughts, which are displayed as the world, trees, plants, etc., about which you are asking. In reality, all these are nothing but the self. If you see the self, it will be found to be all, everywhere and always. Nothing but the self exists. They say that there are many saints in Tibet who remain in solitude and are still very helpful to the world. How can that be? It can be so. Realization of the self is the greatest help that can be rendered to humanity. Therefore, saints are said to be helpful even though they remain in the forest. But it should not be forgotten that solitude is not to be found in forests only. It can be had even in town, in the thick of worldly occupation. Isn't it necessary that saints should mix with people and be helpful to them? The self alone is reality. The world and the rest of it are not. The realized being does not see the world as different from himself. Then does that mean that a man's realization leads to the uplift of mankind without their being aware of it? Yes, the help is imperceptible, but it is still there. A realized man helps the whole of mankind, although without their knowledge. Wouldn't it be better if he mixed with others? There are no others to mix with. The self is the one and only reality. If there were 100 self-realized men, wouldn't it be to the greater benefit of the world? When you say self, you refer to the unlimited, but when you add men to it, you limit the meaning. There is only one infinite self. Yes, I see. Sri Krishna said in the Gita that work must be performed without attachment, and such work is better than idleness. Is that karma yoga? What is said is adapted to the temperament of the listener. In Europe, people do not understand that a man can be helpful in solitude. They imagine that only men who work in the world can be useful. When will this confusion cease? Will the European mind continue waiting in the morass, or will it realize the truth? Never mind about Europe or America. Where are they but in the mind? Realize yourself, and then all is realized. If you see a number of men in a dream and then wake up and recall your dream, do you find out whether the persons of your dream creation are also awake? A self-realized being cannot help benefiting the world. His very existence is the highest good. Chapter 4. The Guru. Bhagavan has said that without the grace of the Guru, one cannot attain the self. What precisely does he mean by this? What is this Guru? From the standpoint of the path of knowledge, it is the supreme state of the self. It is different from the ego which you call yourself. Then, if it is the supreme state of my own self, in what sense does Bhagavan mean that I cannot reach it without the grace of the Guru? The ego is the individuality. It is not the same as the Lord of all. When it approaches the Lord with sincere devotion, it graciously assumes name and form and takes it to himself. Therefore they say that the Guru is none other than the Lord. He is the human embodiment of divine grace. But there are some who seem to have had no human guru at all. True, in the case of certain great souls, God reveals himself as the light of the light from within. Some people report Maharshi to deny the need of a guru. Others say the reverse. What does Maharshi say? I have never said that there is no need for a guru. Sri Aurobindo often refers to you as having had no guru. That depends on what you call guru. He need not necessarily be in human form. Dattatreya had 24 gurus, the elements and so on. That means that any form in the world was his guru. Guru is absolutely necessary. The Upanishads say that none but a guru can take a man out of the jungle of mental and sense perceptions. So there must be a guru. I mean a human guru. The Maharshi didn't have one. I might have had at some time or other, and didn't I sing hymns to Arunachala? What is a guru? Guru is God, or the self. First a man prays to God to fulfill his desires. Then a time comes when he does not pray for the fulfillment of a desire, but for God himself. So God appears to him in some form or other, human or non-human, to guide him as a guru in answer to his prayer. Can one derive any benefit from repeating incantations picked up casually without being initiated into them? No, one must be initiated into them and authorized to use them. A king once visited his minister at the latter's house. There he was told that the minister was busy with his incantations. The king accordingly waited for him, and when he was free to meet him, asked him what incantation it was. The minister told him that it was the Gayatri. The king then asked the minister to initiate him into the use of it, but the latter declared that he was unable to. Thereupon the king learnt it from someone else, and the next time he met the minister he repeated it to him and asked him whether it was right. The minister replied that the incantation was right, but that it was not right for him to say it. The king asked why. The minister called an attendant who was standing nearby and told him to arrest the king. The order was not obeyed. The minister repeated it, and still it was not obeyed. The king then flew into a temper and ordered the attendant to arrest the minister, which he immediately did. The minister laughed and said that that was the explanation the king had asked for. "How?" the king asked. "Because the order was the same and the executive was the same, but the authority was different. When I pronounced the order, there was no effect, but when you did, the effect was immediate. It is the same with incantation." What are the distinctive characteristics of a guru by which one can recognize him? The guru is one who at all times abides in the profound depths of the self. He never sees any difference between himself and others, and is quite free from the idea that he is the enlightened or the liberated one, while those around him are in bondage or the darkness of ignorance. His self-possession can never be shaken under any circumstances, and he is never perturbed. What is the essential nature of upadesa, or spiritual instruction given by the guru? The word upadesa literally means restoring an object to its proper place. The mind of the disciple having become differentiated from its true and primal state of pure being, which is the self, and which is described in the scriptures as Satchitananda, being consciousness bliss, slips away therefrom, and assuming the form of thought, constantly pursues objects of sense gratification. Therefore, it is assailed by the vicissitudes of life and becomes weak and dispirited. Upadesa consists in the guru restoring it to its primal state and preventing it from slipping away from the state of pure being, of absolute identity with the self, or in other words, the being of the guru. The word can also be understood as meaning to present an apparently distant object to close view. That is to say, it consists in the guru showing the disciple what he had considered as distant and different from himself to be immediate and identical with himself. If, as this implies, the real being of the guru is identical with that of the disciple, why have the scriptures categorically declared that, however great powers one may attain, he cannot attain self-realization without the grace of the guru? It is true that the being of the guru is identical with that of the disciple. However, it is very seldom that a person can realize his true being without the grace of the guru. What is your idea of a guru? You think of him in human shape as a body of certain dimensions, complexion, and so on. A disciple, after realization, once said to his guru, "I now realize that you dwelt in my innermost heart as the one reality, in all my countless births, and have now come before me in human shape and lifted this veil of ignorance. What can I do for you in return for such a great benefit?" And the guru replied, "You need not do anything. It is enough if you remain as you are in your true state. That is the truth about the guru." What is the grace of the guru? The guru is the self. At some time, a man grows dissatisfied with his life, and not content with what he has, seeks the satisfaction of his desires through prayer to God. His mind is gradually purified until he longs to know God, more to obtain His grace than to satisfy worldly desires. Then God's grace begins to manifest. God takes the form of a guru and appears to the devotee, teaches him the truth, and moreover purifies his mind by association with him. The devotee's mind thus gains strength and is then able to turn inward. By meditation it is further purified until it remains calm without the least ripple. That calm expanse is the self. The guru is both outer and inner. From outside, he gives a push to the mind to turn inward, while from inside, he pulls the mind towards the self and helps in quieting it. That is the grace of the Guru. There is no difference between God, Guru, and self. In the Theosophical Society, they meditate in order to seek masters to guide them. The master is within. Meditation is meant to remove the ignorant idea that he is only external. If he were some stranger whom you awaited, he would be bound to disappear also. What would be the use of a transient being like that? But as long as you think you are separate, or that you are the body, so long is the outer master also necessary, and he will appear as if with a body. When the wrong identification of yourself with the body ceases, the master will be found to be none other than the self. Will the Guru help us to know the self through initiation and so on? Does the Guru hold you by the hand and whisper in your ear? You may imagine him to be what you are yourself. Because you think you have a body, you think that he has also, and that he will do something tangible to you. His work lies within, in the spiritual realm. How is the Guru found? God, who is immanent, in his grace takes pity on the loving devotee and manifests himself according to the devotee's development. The devotee thinks that he is a man and expects a relationship as between two physical bodies. But the Guru, who is God, or the self incarnate, works from within, helps the man to see his mistakes, and guides him in the right path until he realizes the self within. What should the devotee do then? He has only to act according to the words of the Master and work inwardly. The Master is both within and without, so he creates conditions to drive you inward and at the same time prepares the interior to drag you to the center. Thus he gives a push from without and exerts a pull from within so that you may be fixed at the center. You think that the world can be conquered by your own efforts. When you are frustrated externally and are driven inwards, you feel, oh, there is a power higher than man. The ego is a very powerful elephant which cannot be brought under control by any creature less powerful than a lion, which in this instance is none other than the Guru, whose very looks make the elephant-like ego tremble and die. You will know in due course that your glory lies where you cease to exist. In order to gain that state, you should surrender yourself. Then the Master sees that you are in a fit state to receive guidance, and he guides you. So long as you seek self-realization, the Guru is necessary. Guru is the self. Take Guru to be the real self, and yourself to be the individual self. The disappearance of this sense of duality is the removal of ignorance. So long as duality persists in you, the Guru is necessary. Because you identify yourself with the body, you think the Guru, too, is the body. You are not the body, nor is the Guru. You are the self, and so is the Guru. This knowledge is gained by what you call self-realization. You mistake the body for the Guru, but the Guru himself does not make that mistake. He is the form of the self. That is within you. He appears outwardly only to guide you. Though he instructs his disciples, yet he does not call himself their Guru, realizing as he does that Guru and disciple are mere conventions born of Maya, total illusion. Isn't grace the gift of the Guru? God, grace, and Guru are all synonymous and are both eternal and immanent. Isn't the self already within? Is it for the guru to bestow it by his look? If a guru thinks so, he does not deserve that name. The books say there are many kinds of initiation. They also say that the guru performs various rites with fire, water, incantations, and so on, and calls such fantastic performances initiation, as if the disciple became ripe only after such processes were gone through by the guru. If the individual is sought, he is nowhere to be found. Such is the guru. Such is Dakshinamurti. What did he do? He sat, silent. The disciples appeared before him. He maintained silence, and their doubts were dispelled, which means they lost their individual identities. Jnana, spiritual knowledge, is that silent understanding and not the verbal definitions that are usually given for it. Silence is the most potent form of work. However vast and emphatic the scriptures may be, they fail in their effect. The guru is quiet, and peace prevails in all. His silence is vaster and more emphatic than all the scriptures put together. These questions arise because of the feeling that in spite of having been here so long, heard so much, striven so hard, you have not gained anything. The process that goes on inside you is not apparent to you. In fact, the guru is always within you. It is said that one look of a Mahatma is enough, that idols, pilgrimages, and so on are not so effective. But I have been here for 3 months, and still do not know how I have been benefited by the look of the Maharshi. The look has a purifying effect. Purification cannot be visualized. Just as a piece of coal takes a long time to ignite and a piece of charcoal a shorter time, while a heap of gunpowder is ignited instantaneously, so it is with different types of men coming in contact with the Mahatma. After leaving this ashramam in October, I was aware of Bhagavan's peace enfolding me for about 10 days. All the time while busy with work, there was an undercurrent of that peace of unity. It was almost like the dual consciousness while half asleep in a dull lecture. Then it faded entirely and the old stupidities came instead. Work leaves no time for separate meditation. Is the constant reminder I am and trying to feel this while actually at work enough? It will become constant when the mind is strengthened. Repeated practice strengthens the mind, and such a mind is capable of holding on to the current. Then, whether you are engaged in work or not, the current remains unaffected and uninterrupted. But I feel like there is no progress. How do you know there is no progress? It is the guru, not the disciple, who sees the progress made. It is for the disciple to carry on perseveringly with his work, even though the structure being raised may be out of sight of the mind. Bhagavan says he has no disciples. Yes. He also says that a guru is necessary if one wishes to attain liberation. Yes. What then must I do? Has my sitting here all these years been just a waste of time? Must I go and look for some guru in order to receive initiation, seeing that Bhagavan says he is not a guru? What do you think brought you here such a long distance and made you remain here so long? Why do you doubt? If there had been any need to seek a guru elsewhere, you would have gone away long ago. The guru, or jnani, enlightened one, sees no difference between himself and others. For him, all are jnanis, all are one with himself. So how can a jnani say that such and such is his disciple? But the unliberated one sees all as multiple. He sees all as different from himself. So to him, the guru-disciple relationship is a reality. For him, there are three ways of initiation: by touch, look, and silence. Then Bhagavan does have disciples. As I said, from Bhagavan's point of view, there are no disciples, but from that of the disciple, the grace of the guru is like an ocean. If he comes with a cup, he will get only a cupful. It is no use complaining of the niggardliness of the ocean. The bigger the vessel, the more he will be able to carry. It is entirely up to him. Can Sri Bhagavan help us to realize the truth? Help is always there. Then there is no need to ask questions. I do not feel the ever-present help. Surrender, and you will find it. I am always at your feet. Will Bhagavan give me some upadesa to follow? Otherwise, how can I get the help living 600 miles away? The Sadguru is within. The Sadguru is necessary to guide me to understand that fact. The Sadguru is within you. I want a visible guru. That visible guru says that he is within. Will the Sadguru place his hand on my head to assure me of his help? Then I shall have the consolation of knowing that his promise will be fulfilled. Next, you will be asking me for a bond and filing a suit if you imagine that the help is not forthcoming. How can one know whether a particular person is competent to be a guru? By the peace of mind you feel in his presence, and by the respect you feel for him. And if it turns out that he is not competent, what will be the fate of the disciple who has implicit faith in him? The fate of each one will be according to his merit. The highest form of grace is silence. It is also the highest spiritual instruction. All other modes of instruction are derived from silence, and are therefore secondary. Silence is the primary form. If the guru is silent, the seeker's mind gets purified by itself. Banerjee asked Bhagavan what is the difference between Jivan Mukti, realization while in the body, and Veda Mukti, realization after death. There is no difference. For those who ask, it is said, a jnani with a body is a Jivan Mukta, and he attains Videha Mukti when he sheds the body. But this difference exists only for the onlooker, not for the jnani. His state is the same before and after the body is dropped. We think of the jnani as a human form or as being in that form, but he knows that he is the self, the one reality which is both inside and out, and which is not bounded by any form or shape. There is a verse in the Bhagavata. Just as a man who is drunk is not conscious whether his upper cloth is on his body or has slipped away from it, the jnani is hardly conscious of his body, and it makes no difference to him whether the body remains or has dropped off. Bhagavan says the influence of the jnani steals into the devotee in silence. Bhagavan also says contact with great men, exalted souls, is one efficacious means of realizing one's true being. Yes, what is the contradiction? Jnani, great men, exalted souls, does he differentiate between them? No. Contact with them is good. They will work through silence. By speaking, their power is reduced. Speech is always less powerful than silence, so silent contact is the best. Does the contact continue even after the dissolution of the physical body of the jnani, or only so long as he is in flesh and blood? The guru is not in the physical form, so contact will remain even after his physical form vanishes. He who has earned the grace of the guru will undoubtedly be saved and never forsaken. just as the prey that has fallen onto the tiger's jaw will never be allowed to escape. You attach too much importance to the body. They say that I am dying, but I am not going away. Where could I go? I am here.